Fisher, your face, your hair, everything looks good. Thanks for coming on with me.
Thanks for having me. We're recording.
You are coming to us from very beautiful Boulder, Colorado. For those of you that don't know, by the way, Eric and I have been friends since we were little kids. We played on the same basketball team, and then we really kind of got to know each other in high school. And have kind of loosely stayed in touch here and there. We've kind of kept tabs on each other since we've gone our separate ways after college and things like that. So I'm super excited to have talking to somebody here that I've known for a really, really long time. And I think you've done a lot of really cool things that I want to talk about. But before we get into all of that, like, what's up now? How's it going? How are you?
Things are good. It's funny, we say when we went our separate ways after high school, it's like we didn't tell each other that we were going to go separate ways. CJ, I think it's time we went our separate ways. That would have changed the relationship. The fact that we didn't say it and yet we went separate ways is why we're able to talk now. Isn't that funny? So
That's right. We didn't burn any bridges.
Don't say let's go our separate ways, because then you'll never see each other again if you just let it happen.
You know, I never thought of it that way. I will be very sure not to tell anybody that we should go our separate ways.
Yeah, just do it. Just do it. That will have defined it. Yeah.
The Irish goodbye of relationships.
So I'm in Colorado. Yeah, and we were sitting next to each other in journalism class, junior year of high school, at 17 years old. That's half our life ago, because we're 34.
Yeah, I'm 33. I'll be 34 soon.
Okay, well, we're in that range.
Yeah.
I wasn't even sure if I was 17. So half our life ago, now we meet again for this chat.
I know. And so you're somebody who I think, like, what the life that you're living right now seems like, I don't want to know if I should use the word stark contrast, but certainly different from what path you seem to be on when you went to college and then when you left, right? You went to UPenn, digital media design. You worked at Microsoft, Apple, Google, Facebook. Am I missing any?
Others, yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So you worked at all of those places. You were in Silicon Valley for a number of years. I know you liked it there. I remember you sharing all your photos. Now, here you are, you're living in Boulder, Colorado, which is not Silicon Valley, is not known for, although is there a lot of tech company activity out there?
There is. They're growing. Google just built like the largest office building in Boulder that houses like 2,000 employees. So
see, that's why I asked. That doesn't surprise me. Any place that it becomes kind of trendy to live,
yeah,
I feel like attracts tech companies, or maybe it's the other way around. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it attracts people who want to live in nice places, and if there's enough of them, then the companies want to be there to have them work for them, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, Austin, Texas.
Yeah, I lived in Austin for a period. Austin has got its own scene. It's all spreading around.
How many places have you lived?
I don't know.
Down Connecticut.
7 or so. I did this period where I lived in different cities for 4 to 6 months at a time, repeatedly for years, in order to dive in like 100% and then get the hell out of there and demonstrate to myself what impermanence really is and how it doesn't need to like hold you back from being 100% committed at the time. I think, you couldn't go to college for what I do now. There was no opportunity. There's nothing there. You can't go to college. I'm against college. So it's like, I had to pick something, right? I was looking into psychology, but that didn't seem like it was going to offer the kind of lifestyle that I was looking for. And then I was also looking at architecture, because you probably knew in high school that I wanted to like design my own house or something.
I knew you were, I maybe knew that. You saying that now is not surprising, because I've always associated with you as somebody who's into design.
I'm into it.
Like whatever kind of design that is.
Yeah, no, well, design is just a way of being. It's just a way of looking at the world, trying to understand like the core patterns and like simple elements underneath it. And like from that perspective, it makes it very difficult often to live in our modern world, which has a lot of complexity and complicatedness unnecessarily. So
What
I've been
do you
wanting
mean by that?
just that the way that we've constructed things over time has been very much like slapping band-aids on things until things explode, and then we have to like rebuild it, rather than just like really thinking it out and putting things in place. Of course, the flip side of that is that there were people who thought it out and put things in place, but often the things that they put in place constricted people in various ways, such as someone like me who has to go to school for some reason. I don't know why. I'm the guy who went to, I did well in high school, I did well in college, I did well in the world, and I don't care, and it's all stupid.
So why is, and I think I know the answer, but I want to hear you say it. Why can't anybody go to school for what you do now?
Because there's no education on it. The idea, university is a great idea. I think people should definitely go to school to learn how to think, to learn how to learn, to learn like what this body is and what it can do and what it can't do. But it's become this whole business industry of colleges where you pick a major in anything, and it's filled with programs and books and tests and all this stuff that doesn't matter at all for anything, really. So it just kind of fills your youthful mind, which is like a sponge still, with a bunch of stuff that kind of weighs you down from the nimbleness of being able to create or do whatever you want in life with excitement,
Are you familiar with Seth Godin? Do you know who that is?
I am familiar.
Did you ever read he wrote a manifesto back in 2012. And now this is the second, by the way, podcast episode in a row that I'm referencing this. This is kind of funny, prompted by something somebody else said. He wrote a manifesto back in 2012 that was called Stop Stealing Dreams. And it was kind of like an indictment of how the structure of school, not teachers or but how school is structured. Did you ever see that or read that?
No, I tend not to read, but I'm not surprised. I mean, yes, no, teachers are great. We need good teachers in life, but the system that's in place and the incentives and everything are all misaligned for what we really need to be doing, especially now, given that the world is changing so quickly and adaptability is more critical than like getting a bank job and staying there for your whole career.
Right. Absolutely. So, yeah. I started my own business 5 months ago, and 3-4 months into my business, a global pandemic hits that is having tremendous damage, if you will, on our economy. And yet, I worked at a good company before. I really liked that company, but I almost feel more secure in my job as a business owner than as an employee. There's this weird shift. And I agree, no matter what company you work for. My dad is maybe one of those few exceptions. He's been at IBM for 35 years or something like that. But getting back to the Stop Stealing Dreams, so Seth Godin argues that like school, like public, ubiquitous schooling, at least in America, was put in place in the early 1900s after child labor laws were passed. At that time, companies were arguing that there's no way they could stay competitive if they couldn't, employ child workers and pay them lower wages.
Yeah.
And then, of course, so I guess what Seth Godin argues is that everybody kind of agreed that the next best thing to employ kids, right, yes, to put kids to work, is to teach kids how to become good workers and essentially make investments and deposits for a long-term benefit, right? And so
they specifically said in the design of the school system that we're not trying to create like thinkers or genius people here. We're just trying to get people to a level where they're smart enough to do the job, but not smart enough to realize that they're only this level of smart. And with the advent of the mass media in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and everything coming online in the 80s, when we were born, it just sort of created this very strange paradigm now where we have a lot of people all over the place who think that they are someone and who think that they matter and that their opinions are important. And the reality is that there's a full spectrum of understanding, and most of humanity is not even near the echelon of realization of what's going on, like socially, culturally, globally. Everybody's mostly just caught up in their day-to-day like life because
Totally true.
because it's hard, because life is hard. So I don't blame anybody, because it's hard. You got to make money, you got to take care of kids, you got to do this, you got to do that, you have to do this, oh, I got to worry about that. I mean, that's not the way that people were before. That's not what human animals are. So it's clearly just a byproduct of the time and place that we find ourselves in. And I'm really hopeful that the COVID stuff has given at least some people some time, just some time and some space away from the busyness of life to have a thought that's like, wait a minute, why do I do that? I don't want to do that. Why would I do that? I'm not going to do that anymore. Just for having a little bit of time and space.
Yeah.
And
I think it's certainly happening. For
okay.
sure. You're already seeing it on the business level, right? Which at the end of the day, those are not businesses making decisions. Those are still just people. But in the context of business and work, you're already seeing surveys going out to employees. Hey, would you prefer to work from home more often, right? Because we don't think a lot about 30 minutes in the car as a long commute in this society. 30 minutes, it's commute, throw on the radio, throw on a podcast, drink your coffee, right? It's that morning ritual. It's that ritual that a lot of us have come to enjoy.
Yeah. It's been around.
But you do that twice a day for a week, and now you're talking about 5 hours, right? And then people are taking inventory of their time in addition to, office space and rent, right?
Oh yeah. Oh no, it makes a lot of sense in so many ways. And of course, more and more jobs are done digitally. That doesn't need to be in an office, But of course, it is favoring like the privileged people who are working these kind of jobs and not people who actually have to be in person for things. So it's, widening that that gap.
Yeah, and that's terrible. That is absolutely terrible, because I feel two very overarching emotions about this whole situation. One is it's great. I'm happy. It's rewarding. I'm spending more time with my family. My business is okay. All this is fine. I am so fortunate, right? I built a raised bed. I'm doing vegetable gardens, things like that.
Oh, you are? Oh, cool. Me too.
Yeah. It's so much fun. I'm realizing now that despite the fact that I have work that pays me, that I enjoy, like the things that like, I still have, see that I was laying some more mulch down. If you lay black mulch, I scrubbed the crap out of these fingernails yesterday afternoon. I washed my hands.
That makes you an adult male father.
Right. That's right. I have my man card today. But no matter what, it's going to take like a couple of days to get out. Anyways, despite all of that, I love, maybe more than anything, just being outside, tending to my property, playing with my kids. Being like, you talked about humans being simple animals. Like, yeah, that's what I love.
To do. I mean, the lion is a lion cub with having learned, a maturity level, but it can hunt when it needs to, and then the rest of the time it can play. But for some reason, the human animal has become this like adult. Like I don't want to do anything anymore. That's too much for me. And you're like, well, that's not a lion.
Yeah, not at all.
It looks like something I've not seen in nature. So we got to snap out of it. And I realized that like our generation is coming in hot, like plowing the way in many respects. I know a lot of people in powerful positions now for all the younger people behind us, people who are 32, who are 30, who are 28, who are 27, who are 26, who are 19. And they're all cool. And they're all like, very, they got a lot of energy, right? They want to play. Some of it needs to be reined in a little bit, but the overarching theme is like play, connection, enjoyment. And we need that as like a big, powerful spirit, because that's what life's supposed to be about. And for the last 100-something years or so, it's been very, very work-oriented. In order for us to do this, look at this thing that we made. This is cool. Was it worth it? Maybe. I don't know. This house is cool. Was it worth it? Could be. But now that we're here, I mean, do we really need anything else? I mean, what else?
Yeah.
We really need, you know. I think
Well, that's what brings me to my second emotion, which is very simply put that I'm lucky the government didn't force the shutdown of my business, and how I'm going to provide for my family is not in question.
yeah,
Like that sucks.
yeah,
And I would probably be feeling very differently about this situation if I was in that situation. Um,
that's right. So
so how do we fix it, Eric?
how do we fix it? Well, we're currently just at a time where there's a lot of tension pulling at the humanity on the whole. You know, you can imagine like all of the people as kind of like this amorphous blob that's like moving and shaking and kind of going this way, that way, whatever. But every so often, culturally, like other sides are pushing up against opposite ends, and it gets really stretched out. And inevitably, as always, like there's some kind of collapse where it swings back on itself, and it's pretty chaotic. So I don't know if this is it or if it's coming, but I think that will probably happen, and it will not be fun. But then usually what happens after a snapback is that everybody realizes like, oh, we all actually are living together and we like each other and we're one united group underneath all the layers of the stuff that nobody cares about, really. Like I just want to play too.
You just described a book I read in 2013
Yeah.
called Pendulum.
Oh,
It was written by, you've heard of it?
heard of it. Every 80 years we swing
Yep.
in each generation. You can
Yep.
describe it, but
Between me versus we. And when I read it, they said we're in the upswing of a we. The idea is that as Western civilization, we shift back and forth between two cultural mindsets or spirits of the age. A me is a more individualistic, and a we is a more collectivist. We're in the upswing of a we. A we begins, well, a me begins with this beautiful dream of rugged individualism and can-do spirit. And when you take me too far, it kind of turns into like fake and phony posing. And then we retreat back longing for substance and something real, moving back into a we with this beautiful dream of working together for the common good. And then when you take a we too far, you have too much defining ourselves by the groups we belong to, witch hunts, which is very much like what's going on right now. And they argued that basically the apex of the we would be in the early 20s. They argued this 7 years ago. And everything that's kind of happened has seemed to, it's just a book, some people with an idea, right? So take it for what it is. But I've seen the world through the lens of that book often. Meaning oftentimes I'll see something that happens and I'm like, that is kind of similar to what these guys argued in the book called Pendulum. And what they suggested too is, unfortunately, at the apex of we, there's usually some major conflict.
yeah,
And it comes back and exactly how you just described it.
yeah. Well, I can speak to anybody, but I'm going to specifically speak to like our generation and younger, which is what we can do, which is, we're new to the world still. We haven't necessarily been overloaded with the ridiculousness of many generations past. We still have the potential to do a lot of powerful things. We're not even of the age yet. Like we're going to be in our 40s when we're really doing things out there, And as things get difficult and there's more difficulty ahead, like let's breathe and remember what's real, and remember that we want to play and that we want to connect, and that most things don't matter, and that we're just simple kind of human animals. And unfortunately, I'm concerned that because of all of the anxiety and fear and frustration and difficulty that is the life that we're here in, there's a lot of pain and hurt and anger built up in everyone. I mean, I've had it and I get it. It comes in, and when things explode, we don't need that anger and that hurt to also explode. We could use like some practices to get in touch with it, to realize like, oh, I'm hurting because I just wanted joy, and like life isn't joy. Well, that does hurt. Okay, I'll hold that. I'm not going to get mad about it because we're going to change it. But when things start to turn whatever way they're going to go, we really need a group of people who are in touch with their feelings and can express them in a very firm way to enact, the change that they want to see in the world. So
Yeah, I agree completely. That's really hard to do. Does that relate at all to the project that you're working on now?
It does, yes. So you can't go to school for consciousness. I've always felt that I've been the witness of my life ever since I was a little kid. I've been literally asking my parents since I was 2, like, what is happening? What is this? You don't look like what I think you're supposed to look like. I don't look like what I'm supposed to look like. I can't get along with other people. I don't know what they're wearing. I don't know why they listen to that music. I don't know why that's important, et cetera, et cetera. But you got to pick something. And the thing that made the most sense, of course, was computer science stuff, which was its own just adventure. But it's been done now. And now I can go back to the original love, which is trying to help bring some awareness to what consciousness is and how it can help people like in every way that they want, because everybody is conscious in some way. So it's ultimately about developing personal sovereignty. I don't know if you know that word, but it's like you're wholly in charge of your experience of life. Nobody's coming to help you. You're not depending on anybody. You're not trusting an outside authority. You are the one who has full intelligence to perceive the world, for full sentience to sense into how you feel about it, and full agency to make something happen that you need, no more, no less. And I just feel like the school system and the job system and generally the cultural system at large has a way, particularly of putting people into a position in which they have no sovereignty, in which they really have no authority over their experience of life. And it's so insidious. It's like every little twist and turn, you're actually reliant on someone else. You're reliant on somebody to tell you what to do, or somebody else to give you the answer. And it's like self-sabotaging at every turn. So I say that the answer lies in feeling the pain and feeling the sadness and feeling the hurt, and also like learning about what is going on this ball of rock in the cosmos, outside of the cultural conditioning. But you need time and space to do that. So I have created a couple spaces here in Colorado that are really beautiful homes, one of which I designed that's getting built, that are beautiful places to have time and space to contemplate such things, surrounded by trained facilitators who know what this is and can help in a variety of modalities like meditation or yoga or movement or dance or nutrition, cooking, gardening, improv, journaling, whatever. So you come out here for like a 21-day program or so, and it's like it's inevitable that something will shift, because it's just bound to happen. The ingredients are there.
How?
Time and space is a magical thing, as is feeling your feelings magical. Who would have thought? You know, we spend so much of our time up here dealing with our phones and our schedules, and we're running around trying to do the stuff. It's all talking and thinking. It's all talking and thinking. Maybe it's driven from the heart. Maybe we're like doing it because we really care. That's awesome. And maybe we're putting some kind of power into our work, into what we're doing. But are we truly driven by what really motivates us? Are we really driven every day to do the things that we're called to do? I mean, probably not. I certainly wasn't. I mean, look, I did that tech career for years and I'm good at it, but I don't like it. That's not what I want to do. So is that what we want in our lives? Like, you get a job because you're good at it, but not because you like it, just because that's what you want. It would be great if everybody had a job that they really loved and they could really throw themselves into, and it could be like an expression of their being because they get so good at it, you know. But not everybody has that kind of job. So, but there's no reason why you can't have that kind of job. You just might have to like take a step back and reorient and now go this way. And what opportunities in life today allow you to take a step back, except for coronavirus? So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big thing, because I mean, I built a raised bed. I started a vegetable garden. A lot of my plants are really starting to come up really nicely. And I'm doing this. And these are two things that I've wanted to do for a long time. And I knew that the world would never present itself a better opportunity for me to just start doing this now. So
good. Yes. Take the opportunity. It's beautiful.
I'm doing it.
Yeah.
But what you also said about experiencing your emotions is, I think, is really it's subtle, yet it's really profound. We all have emotions. We all know we're emotional beings. I think depending on the person, maybe you're more or less, I don't know, in tune with your emotions, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
in many ways.
Especially men. I think that's hard. Just the idea of just talking comfortably about emotions, let alone my own emotions,
Yeah.
right? I think for men it can be definitely a little bit harder, but we're still people. We still have emotions, and I think it's really healthy to understand where they come from. And I
Totally.
think we're more than anything, we're just talking and thinking, we're distracted from them, because rather than like sit and feel something, we move from work to talk to whatever, and then
Drinking.
in between we have this,
Oh yeah,
right? And I could just, let me just jump to this so I can continue to distract myself from anything of substance or self-discovery that I could be feeling.
absolutely. Yeah, it's what's the age of distraction for a reason. I mean, so many great poets and writers of the past like spent a lot of time just sitting in nature, sitting, looking, contemplating, feeling. And now, yes, we have the phones. So it's just like, no, that time is taken away. You're sitting and waiting for a friend to show up at a restaurant pre-COVID times, and they're not there yet. So do you sit and observe the people in the restaurant? Probably not. You probably take out your phone. I've done it. And then I look and I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm going to sit and look at the people and look at this restaurant and think about things. And we could really use some more guidance from people out there about how to navigate the emotional abyss of the human experience. Therapy is obviously the way that it's been, but there's a big stigma around therapy, and not all therapists are very good. There's also a whole world of spiritual teachers who do kind of various healing modalities, and there are many lovely people in that space and many not so lovely people in that space. So really, it's kind of difficult to find where is a safe place, because we're not talking about learning a skill like playing piano, like where it doesn't really matter if you don't really like your teacher, kind of thing. Like you're learning. If you're talking in matters of the self and how you feel, like you want to be able to work with people who are good people, who you're like guaranteed, like this is a quality human, this person cares, this one is listening to you, there's no ulterior motive, they're not trying to sell you something, it's just like, this is a human who also knows how to listen and care, and here's who you're working with. And I'll tell you, it's hard to find those out there, because the business world, we talk about marketing, and one thing that I've identified that's so frustrating is that the way that we talk to each other as a culture, in movies, in media, in person, is all marketing. It's become marketing. That's not the way that we should talk to each other, but it's the way that we've learned to talk to each other, because everything in America is about business. It's always been about the economy. It's been built by people who left the monarchy to become their own kings of business. And so it's only natural that the language, especially as the economy gets faster and faster and more connected and more complex, the language also becomes business oriented without realizing. And that is a very good reason as to why we have so many people who are so down on themselves, a lot of negative self-talk, a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of self-loathing. You can't take marketing speak and apply it to humans. They're not the same. Marketing is for selling products in a finite, numeric, quantified world of things. And humans are emotional, flowing, cyclical, non-quantified beings that are always moving and changing at all times and can't be boxed in. And so when we apply this boxed marketing speak, well, how are you going to sell it? Well, what can I do for you? What kind of services do you offer? Well, where did you go to school? What kind of products can you do for me? It's like adding all of these walls to this human flowing little kid who's just like, what do you mean? I just want to play.
Yeah.
So we have this big problem now where we're talking, we think we're talking, we think we're telling stories, we think we're having conversations, and we think we're connecting, and maybe we are in some ways, but the way that we're talking has been wholly influenced by the cultural values, and we're not talking the way we need to.
When you meet somebody at
Yeah.
a bar or whatever, and they're trying to, what's the first question?
Well,
what do you do?
I haven't been asked that in so long. It's so great. But it used to be, yeah, it used to be, whoa, what do you do? Oh, you like that? We should go golfing and talk about that. What kind of car you drive? You like that? What kind of shows do you follow? You read a book? There, if you notice, there's a tendency. It's always external things. How are you connected to the economy at large? That's the question.
Right.
Oh, that's what you'd like to know? Well, here's the answer. But if you'd like to know how I'm connected to, life, I can tell you various things. I can tell you that my dad died last year. It had a strong impact on me in terms of my embracing of impermanence. I've channeled that energy into being a better piano player. That's cool. That has nothing to do with the economy. And is that therefore not valuable for me, the human? I mean, it depends who you talk to. So, I had to give up talking to a lot of people that I knew who just kept speaking in marketing terms all the time and didn't care about the human experience I was having. And so they're just not part of my life. And all the people in my world now, we don't care what anybody does. It's just, what are you feeling? How are you perceiving this? What art are you creating? What are you building? That kind of stuff. It's nice. I mean, do you get to talk to your friends about your vegetable garden and nerd out?
Well, I bring it up when people ask me, how are you doing?
Yeah.
I feel bad for a lot of people who say, how's it going? How are you doing? Because I never just give the good. Because I always aspire to answer that question honestly. So I usually start by saying, I'm doing pretty well. Maybe had a little bit of a stressful week, or, I'm doing great. Just this happened. And, my kids are doing this and my wife and I are doing this. And I'm building a vegetable garden. I'm starting whatever. So I always give at least probably a 1-minute answer anytime somebody asks me what I'm doing, because I like to answer that honestly.
How many times do they ask you follow-up questions?
I don't know. I don't really keep track. I don't really take inventory of that, but definitely I do get asked follow-up questions for sure. But a lot of times people, you can tell, just they were exchanging pleasantries rather than really wanting to know how you were doing.
Yeah.
So I feel bad for them. Now they've learned to never ask me how I'm doing unless they want the real answer.
Well, yeah. I mean, you should feel bad for them because they are not trying to connect with you. So they're missing out on reality.
Right. That could be true. But there are times when I don't want to connect with people. And usually when I don't want to connect with people, it has nothing to do with them, and probably just maybe I'm tired and I just don't feel like, you know what I mean?
Well, right. That's the other thing. So many people are so tired all the time, right? So tired, so anxious, so annoyed, so exhausted, so over it. So I just need to do my own thing. That's also part of the whole system, So it's all together. You can never separate one thing and solve for that, because it's all symptomatic of the system at large, which is why in many respects, the way that we go about treating illnesses is off, because we're trying to isolate one thing.
Putting Band-Aids on the symptoms instead of resolving the root cause.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen psychologists in the past for depression, anxiety. I mean, anxiety because I'm trying to be a high achiever and it just keeps going faster and faster and I can never get a handle on it. And depression because how is this life? This feels terrible. It used to be a big stigma back in the day. Now it's everybody talks about it, which is great. But I don't have anxiety or depression anymore because I'm aware of what caused those to begin with. It wasn't me being different and needing to take medication. It was the system at large that we are part of that modifies the way that everybody communicates and behaves with one another and what our value system is. And if you're somebody who is observant in life, maybe notices things people don't notice, maybe is sensitive, feels things that maybe people are not seeming to feel, it's going to be pretty difficult to live life in that system. So you go see a psychologist, psychiatrist, you get pills. Why not? They want to sell pills, so that's great. But the reality is that the entire paradigm is not real. And so even the depression and anxiety, because it's in the paradigm, is not real. And that there's something else over here, stepped back beyond it, that takes care of all of those issues. So
now, is that part of the reason why you left Silicon Valley, because you were unhappy?
Yeah, it sucked.
It's funny because you would never think of that.
Well, no, because why would I think about that? All I think about is how to be successful and doing whatever the culture.
You were distracted, right? But I mean, even from an outsider's perspective, just seeing you like, ooh, Eric's working at Facebook now,
Yeah.
and just the assumption of Eric's doing great, he's killing it, and all this stuff, and
Yeah.
that's, I guarantee you that's what I thought at that time, and on some levels, I'm sure you were, but I mean, how much is it worth it if you're not happy?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have this life without that time and everything. So it's all part of the life path. But yeah, people, just because something looks like something on the outside does not mean anything about the actual human experience happening. And
Yeah,
oftentimes people are just not connected to their human experience. I wasn't. I was definitely at the time living mostly fully in my perception of what it was, not what it actually was. Because what it actually was pretty painful. And why would I do something for myself that would be painful? Therefore, it must not be painful. It must be this. So delusion takes
right.
over for this long period until,
Or there's just something wrong with me.
yeah, well, and then if you dare share any of those feelings with other people, depending on who they are, yeah, they'll tell you it's you. You're the one with the problem. And it's like, that's like the worst. If you can tell who's your real friend or not just by posing something vulnerable to them and how they respond. Because if they respond trying to lift you up in some way, in a constructive way, that's good. Like, that's good. But if they're at all critiquing or criticizing or whatever, like, no, that's
Yeah.
not
Now,
useful.
do you think like Silicon Valley, for all that it is broken and it's just bad, or do you think it is what it is, and for a lot of people like you, it doesn't fit, but for some people, it might fit them perfectly?
I mean, it's different now than it was. Right now, it's like it's very complex. There's like tons of companies, tons of venture capitalists, tons of money floating around that didn't exist before because it's flowed in over the years. A lot more innovation to build on top of. I mean, you can build a whole new website on like a stack of developer stuff so quickly. It used to be you have to write your own libraries. So it's just very fast, and there's a lot of people throwing a lot of money at it because why not? We'll see who hits it big. So it's just attracting a lot of people who are looking to make money and who want to play in tech. And frankly, I feel like we passed the golden nugget of tech like years ago, and nobody, it didn't even make a sound. It used to be Steve Jobs for a long time talking about the personal computer, and like, we remember the Macs in high school. They were not so good. I didn't like them, the colorful ones with Mac
Yeah.
OS. But then
Yeah, I
they
think we first got them in middle school too.
middle school, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I was always a PC guy, but then I switched over with Mac OS 10, and then the Mac laptop started getting really, really good. And then, the iPod, and then the iPhone, which is running Mac OS 10. You know, we were trying to kind of create this digital tool that's personal that you can use to enhance your experience of life. He called it a bicycle for the mind. So, when the first iPhone came out and I had it because I was working at Apple, it was like, I have GPS. That's really helpful. Now I can go walk around and I'm fine. That's a big deal. But now we have like all of these games and like animojis and your avatar pictures and everybody's, and like addiction issues with social networks and sharing. I'm like, well, that's not what that's not what the idea was when it was conceived. So it's taken a turn. It's gone into something, and the same could be said for the tech industry on the whole. So some people love it. They love getting out there and building stuff or talking to people and raising money. So go ahead. And if they're creating jobs for other people, like, okay. But there's definitely a lot of volatility. Like, not every job is secure, and not every service that is built is secure. Sometimes a company will build a service, get a bunch of users, use all this marketing term to say, we're here for you, blah, blah, blah. And then the company goes under or gets acquired and the whole service shuts down. And it's
Yeah.
like, well, but all those people were now depending on it as part of their lives. You made that. You told them to make it part of their lives. And now you shut it down. So that's not good. Don't do that. So it's a full spectrum of, amazing stuff happening and not so good stuff happening.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, that's the money behind it. You'll have to indulge me for a second. Did you have any experiences? I'm not sure if I've ever asked you this. Have you had any experiences with Steve Jobs when you
I
were at
did
Apple?
him a couple times. Yeah. I also got up from my lunch table just as he was sitting down at that lunch table on purpose, because I knew that he came out of the cafeteria at 1 o'clock precisely. So I sat at that table. Yeah.
Nice. Cool. Um,
I had more contact with Mark Zuckerberg because I was working with him,
right. Right. Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you about that next. Cause you were doing newsfeed at the time, right?
I was, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
And
still
then,
as it was, really. They just tweak the algorithms, but visually it's the same thing.
so not a lot of people know this, but your cousin is the actor Jesse Eisenberg. So literally while you were working at Facebook and reporting to Mark Zuckerberg, your cousin plays your boss in a movie.
Yep.
What was that like?
They were separate. It was funny. We actually, the whole company went to go see the movie, and I sat like behind Mark in a row or something, and it was just a fun little thing. But it was one of those experiences that, like many others, has a way of easily warping one's perception of reality if you're not careful. And I started getting different kinds of attention for no reason. And I'm like, why? Who cares? Why does this matter? So it was strange. I think it was good to have something like that early on to realize that you definitely don't want to be famous, because it has nothing to do with anything. It has only to do with other people's perceptions of you, which, why would you want that? So.
Yeah, I've definitely fallen into the trap of letting other people's perceptions of me influence me. We'll just leave it at that. And then a lot of the labels that people want to assign to me, usually in a positive manner, if they're a friend trying to build me up and, hey, you're this, whatever, make me uncomfortable, because either they're untrue or it's just totally unfounded. Like there's no way for you to know if what you just said about me is true or not. But I think it's a dangerous trap to fall into. And then I can only imagine how that would be amplified. And that's just a small group of people who are, who are my friends or family, or just want to build me up. Right. And I probably do the same thing to other people too. But I can only imagine what that would be like if you were famous.
It's the same thing for fake news. People say whatever, and that becomes somehow the reality, regardless of what is actually true. So somehow people saying things and other people hearing those things makes it more real than not saying it and having it just be the reality. So what is that? That to me is the ultimate question of the human condition, is why are we so susceptible to other people and their words and their tone of voice and their expression? Why are all those things so influential on our perception of reality that we literally unconsciously create a sense of self based on those judgments? And then we go around the world thinking that I'm this guy with these things and these are important to me, when it all isn't other stuff.
Isn't it because our need for connection and belonging is greater than our need for something to be right?
Well, yeah, the value of self-esteem comes after the value of belonging. There's no esteem if there's no belonging. If you just remove the whole thing, then there's nothing. You're just eating carrots on the land. So that we are living with other human animals who are social, that we have the longest time spent with our parents as babies than any other animal, that we need the connection and the love and the reciprocation of it's not even a word, of love. We are in this condition of that. And so, of course, the esteem would depend on how much you feel like you are getting enough. So if you're growing up and you're not getting enough, you're going to start grasping for it in every which way, not just physically grasping, but even in your persona. You'll even talk a certain way to get what you want, even though you don't even know what you're doing. You're just a kid. They mimic stuff. So this becomes the personality, and now here we are, adults, acting the same patterns, wholly unaware that these are behaviors developed from a different reality when you were a kid and you were at the mercy of your parents and your family. Like now you're an adult, now you can heal those things and do whatever you want and get your own love, that kind of thing. So
it is so profound and obvious when you say it, but myself included, how few people are actually thinking about that. You know what I mean? Or that, well, you use the word consciousness.
Yeah.
right? It is not readily recallable for most consciousness, right? Like if you're experiencing pain or suffering, however that is, like to be able to understand maybe where it came from and realizing where that gap is, and that, I mean, because you can't fix a problem if you don't know what it is or where
Oh,
it
yeah.
comes from.
Agreed.
So then maybe you'll outwardly project that problem unnecessarily on other people or things, or
Yeah, and they got their own shit, so they're gonna react, and it's like now you don't even know what's real because now you're reacting to their reaction, and it's like, oh god, we just went off on this whole thing. So,
what is the name of your company again?
True Place.
True Place. That's right. True Place.
Find your,
TruePlace.com.
find your true place in this world. It's not what you think.
I signed up for email. Let me see. TruePlace.com.
No, .org. But
.org.
I would tell your viewers to go to highexistence.com. That's the website that I cooperate with some friends here that has a lot of articles on consciousness and psychedelics and spirituality.
Is this your website, or is it like a bunch of friends you guys do it? Did you just answer? As I was trying to pull it up, Transcend the Ordinary.
I didn't build it. It's been around for 10 years, but
You contribute to it.
to build the community out and rebrand it. So
That's awesome.
we
I'm definitely going to check this out.
We do these psychedelic retreats in the jungles of Costa Rica with ayahuasca, and it's a wild time.
This is really interesting. I mean, you've said a lot of things that in this that make me want to, I guess, reflect more. Maybe ways that I'm not prepared to share right now, but I think that if most people are being honest with themselves, this is definitely a large part of their being that they've neglected. And so I'm very interested in this. I'll check it out, and I'll definitely include a link as well.
Cool. Yeah. Well, consider this. You know, there's this what is it? A shrimp? It's some kind of animal. I should know this. It gets born in the rivers, you know, mountain rivers, and all it needs to do is attach itself to one of the rocks, like under the water. And once it anchors itself, then it can just kind of dangle in the water, and it just picks up all of the nutrients that fly by, and it's tethered, and that's it. So it's safe, even when the water moves fast, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like an apt metaphor for this experience that we're all having as like people and humans, which is that we're born and we're kind of just like floating around trying to get our bearings of what's going on. And at some point we need to anchor to something, hopefully something stable, in order to like let life go by us as we filter out whatever we need. It's a much better and easier life to just be over here kind of, oh, I'll take that, thanks. Oh, okay, I'll take that. Than to be like, oh my God, I'm running around, you know. You could imagine the hunter-gatherer society, like, yes, they were moving around all the time, but they weren't like, every day they could hang out in a nice grass valley for a bit and just enjoy the berries for like days or weeks or whatever, and then move on. Yeah. They weren't like, oh my God, we need to find more trees. Holy shit, we need to go down to this other place. I found an orchard, you know? So what are we anchoring to, right? In many ways, because we are somewhat separated from the emotional experience, because we don't talk about it, because maybe we had a difficult relationship with our parents, didn't talk about it with them. We had difficult social relationships, whatever it is. We have to anchor to something. We can't anchor to our own experience of reality because it hurts and we can't get any validation that it's legitimate. Because, right? So we anchor to other things. We anchor to other beliefs and other values. We anchor to the value of like, we need to go to college. That's important. We need to do that. We anchor to the value of, we need to make a lot of money. We need to anchor to, well, you got to have this. We need to get married. Whatever it is, you know, you anchor. Not to say that those are bad at all, but I don't want people to anchor to things that are not as sturdy as the real anchor, which is one's real experience of life. Because you never know, if you anchor to something that's not stable, that wind current comes, or that river current goes that way, and now you just get ripped off, and now you're not connected to that thing anymore. Should have picked a better anchor. So I just want us to bring awareness as to like, what is grounding us, what is real. You know, when you say something that is real, keep asking, is that real? Is that true? I mean, what is really true?
Just like how you kept asking your parents.
Yeah, yes. Why? Why that? Why that? Well, I did that with my parents, and I always won, because they would just say, either go to your room or I don't know, Eric. And I'm like, okay, well, that's an answer. Thanks for saying I don't know. Now I can like figure it out. But when they push you away, it's like, well, these are legitimate questions to ask. You know, we should all be asking these questions. So don't forget, don't forget that childlike energy. We need to be asking those questions all the time. You know, what are we going to do about the growing rift with race and economic status? What are we going to do? You know, these are questions. Where does that come from? Why are we doing this? Why are we putting people in offices for so long? Why are we commuting? Why are we always stressed out? You know, bring the childlike wonder. It's fun.
It sounds really fun, to be honest. You seem very thoughtful and at ease, and very willingly tackling maybe uncomfortable subjects from a very comfortable and secure place.
And the reason why is because I do not identify with Eric Fisher or myself or whatever this is. I'm removed from it, as I always have been. And people told me that I was somebody and told me that I had to do things to be somebody. And they were all incorrect, because I didn't have to do anything. I was already great and worthy of love and capable as a young child, as I'm sure we all were. And it's been quite a journey to go through the motions of all of the cultural things, only to ultimately realize what I knew to be true back then. And if people, you know, could take the time and dial in and feel some things and get it what really matters, like, it would be the same for you too. You'd be able to let go of all of the stuff that's not necessary, and your life would become significantly more enjoyable, calm, serene. You'd be able to see the butterflies and you'd be like, oh, that's cool. Who wouldn't want that? I'm not even asking that you pay a subscription fee or bow down to a god. I'm just saying that you own your own experience of reality as a conscious being on this earth, whatever this is, right? But if you are too caught up emotionally with who you're supposed to be, you know, I need to be a good husband, I need to be a good daughter, I need to be a good worker, I need to do these things, then yeah, it's very hard to talk about these things, because they are literally chipping away at your very holding pattern. I can't do that, then I won't be these things. Well, I don't want you to be those things. You should be none of those things. Well, but I have obligations. Yep. So it's a real conundrum. That's why I'm excited that if we do have some kind of snap back or something coming, right? We're gonna be like ready. That's the time. Like this is an example right here. It's like a little snapback. Like, oh, some people have some time now. Use it. Plant your gardens. Understand that vegetables grow on their own, and you don't need to use pesticides. And what the hell, you know? That's the kind of stuff. Little bits at a time. These are the years now. So I'm excited.
I'm excited too. I would actually wish that we could talk longer, but I have a call that I have to jump onto in a couple of minutes. It's going to be very different from this conversation that we just had. Eric, I really, really appreciate you making some time for me. I think this was super fun. I can't wait to share it. And, you know, maybe we can do it again sometime.
Sounds good.
Hey, I appreciate it. Talk soon.
Okay, bye. See ya.